Chris, look, for all the struggles of the Patriots, I look and I see, number one, Patriots 9-1, and I just feel like no matter what gets thrown at them, no matter where they are, no matter what they do, no matter who they play, they're just going to keep winning games. And they need to hold that one-game lead over the Ravens, because if they finish with the same record, the Ravens take the 1 seed in the AFC.
Well, yes. I mean, I'm with you. That's the common thought. I mean, New England's just going to continue to find ways to win, despite their offense not being as strong as we've seen in their past. Now, this week, the Cowboys come into town, and then they got the Texans and the Chiefs. They'll be tough. I mean, they will be. I don't think we can look at New England this year and just think they're going to blow anybody out. Not with that offense. So all those teams, yeah, they got to deal with the Patriots defense, but I think a lot of those teams are going to look at them and go, yeah, but we think we can hold, Brady and New England under 20 points too. Now, 20 points might not be, 20 points might be the benchmark for all New England needs to do on a weekly basis. They got a big challenge this week, a team that can pose some of the same problems that the Baltimore Ravens did to them. Overpower them up front, all their linebacker sets and things like that. Dallas can kind of say, great, put a lot of linebackers on the field. We got this offensive line. We're going to smash it down your throat. And then, if you want to play one-on-one outside with Gallup and Amari Cooper and Randall Cobb, they like their chances there too. Now, New England's special on D. There's no doubt about it. But I think them and the Ravens are clearly the 2 best teams. After that, I mean, it's a toss-up to where you want to go and where this ends up, this 3 through 6. It could go a lot of different ways right now, because I could see a lot of these teams, losing a few games down the stretch.
Yeah, back to the Patriots, too. You look at their schedule. They've got the Cowboys, and they have at the Texans. Chiefs come to town. At the Bengals, that is obviously a win. Stunning if there's anything other than a blowout there. And then the Bills and the Dolphins to end the season. Really, the next 3 games are the toughest. And Buffalo won't be easy, but the next 3 are really going to tell us whether or not they can hold on to that number 1 seed, especially because for the Ravens, look, they still have to play the Browns and the Steelers to end the season, and they got the Rams and the 49ers coming up. The Browns and the Steelers are 3 games behind the Ravens, but I guarantee you both of those teams are going to give the Ravens everything they can handle, because they're going to want to try to screw things up for the Ravens. They don't want them to be the number 1 seed. Even if Cleveland's mathematically eliminated, even if the Steelers are done come the final week of the season, they're going to come after the Ravens hard. And the Browns have already beaten them once. So even though they're 8-2 and they've won 6 games in a row, we can't forget things that happened early on. And one of the things that happened early on is Cleveland somehow went into Baltimore and managed to win the game. But it just feels like the Ravens are operating on a higher plane right now. And I feel like they're going to catch the Patriots at some point down the stretch. You mentioned 3 through 6, and there is a lot of flux there. And look, I think that we can't process the idea that the Raiders could actually win the division. But they can win the division, Chris.
Yeah, sure. Of course they can. And they can do exactly what we've seen the Indianapolis Colts do to the Kansas City Chiefs at home, which is they can bludgeon them with their run game, control the clock, a little bit like we saw the Chargers in the first half last night, and, keep Mahomes and company on the side. I mean, one of the most efficient offenses in the sport right now is the Oakland Raiders, between their run game and Derek Carr being extremely accurate in that short to intermediate pass game. So that's dangerous. I don't look at any of the teams 3, 4, 5, or 6, Chiefs, Colts, Texans, or Bills, as being really complete, well-rounded teams yet. And of course, the Raiders nipping at their heels. With the Steelers still alive in this conversation. I mean, there's just a lot of football to be played still, and I just wonder who is going to be the team. Like to you, if you had to pick the one team there, right, out of all those teams we just mentioned, to where you say, okay, it's the Patriots and the Ravens. We know that. Who do you think at the end of the day is going to be that third team that we go, and they might be able to upset one of those 2 teams in the divisional round? Who is it going to be? Because right now, I don't know.
Yeah, and I'm looking not just at the other teams that are currently in the playoff window, but beyond that. Is there a team that could roll into Baltimore or New England and win in the divisional round? And I'm just not sure that there is right now in the AFC.
The Colts are like the only team I look at a little, just because of that offensive line. And if they can get T.Y. Hilton and Devin Funchess back healthy, to where their offense might be able to dictate games, and their defense is solid. It's not like one of the best in football, but it's in the top half of the league. They're the one team I look at, and of course with Frank Reich's game planning, as we talk about a lot, they're the one team I look at that might be the gnat in the room for the Ravens or the Patriots if that time came.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that at all. And I'm looking now at the teams after the 6 that are in playoff position. Is there a team there? I mean, we say the Steelers, but my God, they looked so bad last Thursday night against the Browns. You know, I go back to what we discussed on Thursday. Hey, the Steelers, they've lost to the Patriots and the Ravens and the 49ers, and they've lost to some great teams, and then they just get completely shut down by the Browns, and it's a different feeling about the Steelers. Do you believe that they can find their way through the end of the season schedule and be a team that would be difficult to beat when January rolls around?
And no, I don't believe it, because I just don't think their defense can dominate every week and cause turnovers and strip sack fumbles and pick sixes and all that. At some point, the offense has to do something. And what got lost in the melee last week with Myles Garrett and everything was an absolutely pitiful game by Mason Rudolph. And you feel bad saying it because he got whacked over the head with a helmet, and that's certainly, I feel bad for him there. I mean, that was some BS. We know that. But
the good news is getting whacked over the head with a helmet made us all forget that he threw 4 interceptions.
He played horrible. He played horrible, like to the point where, I would have thinking about putting Hodges in. And I'm not so sure Hodges wouldn't be the best answer for the start this week. He's a better thrower than Mason Rudolph. He gives them a chance in the passing game. Hey, it's always concerning when a team has to change their offense to a bunch of 3- and 4-yard throws to fit the quarterback. I mean, that kind of tells you something. Now, they drafted him, and they're stubborn, and they're going to try to make it work because they're trying to sell themselves on that he could be the future offer Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, well, I seriously question that. They haven't been winning some of those games through their winning stretch because of Mason Rudolph. I could tell you that. It's because of that front seven and Minkah Fitzpatrick. And, that's my concern with the Steelers. I just don't know if it's realistic to win the way they've won during that stretch.
Yeah, and, all of these events are unfolding within the context of the NFL dusting off the Colin Kaepernick question. But, Chris, isn't it fair to ask when you look at the Steelers' current depth chart quarterback,
100%.
whether or not Kaepernick would – and why wouldn't you want that? If you're trying to catch the Ravens, if you're trying to compete with the Ravens, you could try to out-Raven the Ravens with a quarterback who was doing the things Lamar Jackson is doing now 6 and 7 years ago.
Well, yeah, and the Steelers are kind of built to kind of play that. We saw that. They put in running backs at quarterback with Jalen Samuels. That's how they did to start off when Ben Roethlisberger was hurt. But, the spectacle around Colin Kaepernick is just not going to help him at this point to get on a team. And I don't think a team like the Steelers is going to want to deal with it. So that's the big issue there. I just, more than anything, it's going to be like, man, do we really want to deal with the questions and the fanfare and the backlash on a day-to-day basis? And that's the disheartening thing, at least from the Colin Kaepernick standpoint from last weekend, is, he didn't diffuse any of that.
But you know what? But here's the thing.
Yeah.
Mike Tomlin could get to the podium and he could say, hey, folks, we're trying to win football games.
Sure.
And right now, we don't have our franchise quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger, and we're not good enough offensively to win football games. And here's a guy that we think can help us win. And we're going to see. We're going to bring him in for a tryout, and if it looks good, we're going to put him on the team. And when he's ready to go, if he's the best option we have, he's going to go because we're trying to win enough games to get to the playoffs. And I'm not going to make any apologies for that, blah, blah, blah. That's what he would say.
Yeah.
They signed Mike Vick at one point, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
I'd like to think that any team that ever signed Mike Vick after he served 2 years in prison for dogfighting and was never prosecuted in Virginia, as he should have been, for killing dogs deemed unfit to die while fighting other dogs, if you can embrace him, and don't get me started. I've already started.
Well, it's all right.
Finished.
I understand. They're both bad, and I get what you mean. You're right.
No, they're not both bad.
Well,
one is horrible, and the other one did nothing wrong.
Okay? You're right, but it's a very divisive subject.
Right.
That's the problem
right.
there. And that, so you're right. I get it. I just don't see it happening. I do agree with you. Mike Tomlin is the type of guy that can handle Colin Kaepernick in that situation. He's the champion of press conferences and communicating to players and all that. But I just don't see it happening at this point as far as the NFL is concerned for Colin Kaepernick. And last week was a bad look for both sides, but it doesn't help Kaepernick. One other thing, too. Can we just bring up – I don't mean to change the subject, but I just find this fascinating about the AFC playoff picture, too. Like the Bills. This is where I just think, everybody is still alive in the AFC. 1 through 10. I mean, even the 4 and 6 Browns are there. The Bills got the Broncos, the Cowboys, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Patriots all on the horizon. They could lose every one of those. And then when you look at teams like the Texans, where they could lose to the Patriots and the Titans and the Colts again as well, you start to go, man, maybe this is a year an 8-8 team gets in the AFC. I mean, it's starting to shape up where that could be a real possibility, and that's the crazy thing to me more than anything. I'm sorry, I just wanted to get that out of my mouth. Sorry.
No, I mean, here's the thing. It's Patriots-Ravens, and it's wide open.
Wide open.
For the other 4 spots. Wide open.
Yes, it is.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.